difference.
Some insight
To what's happening to our planet.
what's happening to us and what we can do. Quit cutting down all the trees, quit tossing carbon dioxide out there, find something else to burn, do something to keep having us wind up like Mars. Right? So that's one reason why we might want to go. Now, we're not ready yet.
Don't take the show. Let's relax. Let me start with Gene.
Okay.
Gene, given the well-documented economic problems facing the Russian people today, I got to ask you, what's in it for them to go to Mars, other than the fact that the planet's red?
Well, obviously, they have a considerable amount of financial problems. They are an economic basket case economy. We know that every time they get into a situation where things are getting heavy, then they simply throw out a peace offensive to the West. They make all sorts of nice gestures, and we have Ron and Michael holding hands with each other. We get the feeling that because of this situation, the Soviets basically want a little more technology. After all, they simply get all our technology they either can't buy, they steal. When you get right down to it, it's to their advantage to go to Mars with us. $100 billion, with $100 billion, we could put up a space defense system to defend America, because currently we're undefended.
Well, let me see it. Gene, I'm sure you have some thoughts in that area. I mean, technologically, we're superior.
Right.
We can get to Mars on our own. We don't need to share this accomplishment, of course, but naturally we're going to.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to be ready to go to Mars for a long time.
How long?
Oh, 30, 40 years.
So
There's a lot to
things
be
could
done.
have changed in that
No, unmanned, yes. Manned, it's going to take a long time. And by then, who knows who our friends are going to be in the world and who our enemies are going to be in the world. A few years back, China was the yellow peril. We were much more afraid of them than we were the Russians, and now we call them our friends. A few years earlier than that,
some of us call them.
you know, Germany, Japan,
Some of them, not
you
all.
know, well, the government does. Germany, Japan, go back that far in history, you go back that far forward to the time we're going to Mars, who knows who our friends are going to be?
Well, let me ask Gene. Gene, here's what I don't really understand. All right, if we're going to be so damn magnanimous about Mars, shouldn't we be working at least with our allies on a Star Wars defense system?
Yeah, for crying out loud, if we're going to do it, let's do it with the Japanese, the Germans, you know, let's face it, the French.
And let
Our allies,
them
let's
spend some
do it
money
with
for a change.
with the gal we bought for the dance with. But that's the one we should do it with.
With the ones that are already defeating us,
Well,
economically.
You know, defeating us economically.
You know who won the Cold War? Germany and Japan. You know,
Well, they're doing
lost
very
it.
well
We
economically.
did, the Russians did.
They're doing very well economically. The fact is, you're one fellow of all people who is basically a pro-Soviet apologist. I've debated you before. In Pravda, they quoted you as following.
Now, wait a minute. I thought we were here
Let me hear
whether or not we're going to go to Mars.
I want to hear about
You want to know, this is where this man is coming from. He said, this is
Why
a
don't you let me
quotation
speak for
from
myself?
Pravda. Well, no, why don't we hear directly what they say? The Star Wars program has nothing in common with defense. It's an attempt to achieve absolute military superiority by means of creating new offensive weapons passed off as defensive ones. Their purpose is to gain superiority, that's us, in outer space, destroy the other side's nuclear missiles, and after that to inflict their own nuclear strike.
What does it say
with
about him,
impunity.
though? You said
What
what
he's
it said.
saying, he's a pro-Soviet
he's
apologist.
saying that?
He's saying that in Pravda.
Nah, you weren't saying that. That's just their propaganda, right? You didn't say that.
Propaganda, right?
You
I
didn't say
said
that.
most of it.
What?
I said most of it.
You said most of that? It won't work, will it? It won't work, will it?
Yeah, it will.
Star Wars will work.
Yeah, Star Wars will work.
And you still don't want us to have it.
That's right.
You want the Russians to have it?
No, absolutely not.
Nobody should have it.
Absolutely, you're
We should
right.
just be
Nobody
able
should
to
have it.
bomb the out of each other, right?
Well, that's where we are right now.
So why don't we have a Star Wars that will give at least a modicum of a blanket to save some of these people?
It might save a few rats, but there's a better way. There's a way to save all of these people.
A few what? You might save a few what?
Rats, not people.
These are
No,
these
no,
are
no.
rats. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand what
You know,
you're
the little...
Martin, let me pick up on this guy for a minute. Let me-
there's a way to save all of these people.
How?
And that's to prevent the missiles from being fired in the first place.
How?
Prevent a nuclear war.
How?
The way we're doing it now, the way our military has been doing it for some time, and the only way we can do it in the future. We in the military know that the only way we can accomplish our objective of protecting these people...
You're in the military?
He identifies himself as military.
I am still Lieutenant Colonel retired.
Lieutenant Colonel retired.
And I'm still
so you're
on
not
call.
active.
I'm not on active duty.
Hey, listen,
but
baby,
I'm
when the
still a
next one,
commissioned officer,
when the next one
subject to
calls, a
recall.
walking ass be on call.
Passover flies.
Tell you what, if we can't trust the Russians on Earth, why on earth are we going to go to Mars with them, huh? Stand by, we'll find out.
Furnished by Redwood Limousine. When in New York, call 212-226-7665.
Lady, that sounds like you just laid an egg. Let me introduce the gentleman at loudmouth number one, Lev Narazov. Is that correct, Lev?
Lev Navrozov, if you want to be
Lev
perfect.
Navrov.
Right.
Rozov. I have a hell of a time saying Russian names, but you're a Russian emigre and Soviet observer, all right?
Right.
Is a joint mission like this a manifestation of the new Russia or simply a great PR job on the part of the KGB?
Well, let me put it this way. First of all, I've been hearing Dr. Bowman, and he lives in a fool's paradise created by our dear liberal Democrat media, our dear liberal Democrat academe, and our dear liberal Democrat government. Because Ronald Reagan is a classical liberal Democrat as of last December.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a fool's paradise in which Dr. Bowman has been living.
How long did you live in the Soviet
Actually,
Union? How long did you live in the Soviet Union?
I came when I was 43,
Okay.
practically my entire life.
Okay.
And I studied the Soviet Empire for 20 years from within, which is unique.
Mm-hmm.
I've been studying it ever since, of course. Let me put it this way. The Soviet Empire is a war machine. Its every nail is hammered in there with some military or strategic purpose. Now, what is the United States? What is the West?
So how
Well,
about the
it's
trip? How
a
about the trip
pleasure
to Mars?
job.
How about
No,
the trip
this
to
is
Mars?
important.
Yeah, but
It's
I
a
don't
pleasure job.
want a dissertation. I
Yes.
want, how to get to Mars.
To
Right.
Mars.
Yeah, to Mars.
Now that war machine is going to Mars because the side which controls or commands or dominates the space dominates the world. Want another dissertation?
When he trots the mile in one...
You're saying it is also a fool's paradise. You say it's also a fool's paradise for us to in any way imagine 30 years from now tying our hand to Soviets and going together into space.
Going together is destructive for the United States. The United States should go alone and dominate space. Just...
What is, Dr. Bowman, very nice...
You go. I'll stay here, thanks.
Very nice statement. What is...
A silly joke,
Lev.
Dr. Bowman.
Lev.
The truth is that you are, I want to be kind to you. You know about the Soviet Empire about as much as a 6-year-old child knows about
let me ask.
found in
Now,
you
Lev,
a simpleton,
Lev,
a useful idiot.
Don't make me yell, all right? Don't make me yell tonight. I don't want to yell.
Oh, yes, very good. I always speak without a microphone, so it's my habit.
Okay, let me come back to Bob Bowman here a second. Doctor, what is your interpretation, all right, of the motivation behind the Russians? I mean, isn't this really just a Russian Smith-Barney approach? You know, we get our information the old-fashioned way, we steal it. Huh?
Well, actually, during the space age, the Soviets have been very forthcoming with the areas in which their knowledge is superior, like life science. They're far ahead of us in manned space flight at the moment. For obvious
because
reasons.
they sabotaged our space flight. But
No.
Yeah, that's true, it is. Yeah, they did. Let me go
We
for that.
sabotaged our own.
We lost
We
8
sabotaged
space launches
our
in a row.
own.
We lost 8 space launches in a row over the period of about a year and a half. 8 space launches in a row.
Let's not get into this loony high
basically,
frontier,
this is not loony high frontier. This is basically sabotage. I would say circumstantially everything.
The military, the CIA,
1 out of
everybody
250 million
investigated those
chances.
things. No.
Oh, look, we have
There is
8
not a
space
thread of
launches
truth
in a
in it.
row
The
going down,
Soviet
okay?
Empire is ahead in many space directions. For example, the Soviet Empire put up a permanent station which will have a crew of 100 people. And the United States is going to do it only in 10 years. So the Soviet Empire is already ahead in many directions. But the problem is that the Soviet Empire never releases to the United States any information of strategic importance. Now, the United States,
Wait a minute, Dr.
which
Bowman, you're
consists
saying
of
that's baloney.
individuals like Dr. Bowman,
Then why-
they, of course, give everything.
You know,
and the Soviet Empire absorbs all
Lev,
strategic
If
information.
this
Let me
loudmouth
hear from Bowman,
was
too.
right, I talked to Arkady Shevchenko about these. He's the highest-ranking Soviet defector. Right? And believe me, he's a lot closer to my view on this. But if he was right, then we ought to do something like go to Mars with the Russians so we can steal their technology.
No,
we
you
have an open society. They're going to get ours anyway. Why don't we get some of theirs? Come on, it's ridiculous.
That's simple enough. You can't do it because every Soviet scientist is a salaried employee of the state. And every Soviet scientist is controlled by the KGB, which hasn't been in power in that country for 8 years. Read my articles for the New York City Tribune. And you'll see how it happens stage by stage.
Let me come back to Jim
Therefore,
Bob.
it is impossible. There, that society is controlled and checked.
Just a minute.
Let me deal with...
Turn around. They want to give you a high.
We will overcome.
You will what?
Overcome.
You will overcome?
We.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
He's pretty good. He even sounds like a Russian.
Let's deal with this, okay?
He doesn't act as Russian as you do.
That's a compliment.
They're all right,
That's a
Lev.
compliment because they are
Lev.
very good Russians.
Okay, let's deal with this problem of 8 space launches in a row going down, the possibility of Soviet sabotage. 2 hours before the space shuttle was blown up, because I believe it was blown up, actually blown up through actually a microwave, I would say this, those 8 space shuttles, 8 shuttles that went down, the chances of that happening are 1 out of 250 million. If you imagine losing 8 in a row, if you understand the Soviets can actually fire a microwave, all of these launches went down within the first 73 seconds of launch. Some of them in the first 5 seconds. The electronics devices are very, very tricky on these things. You can fire a microwave, goes right through the thing, can destroy and upset your inertial guidance system, and it can go down. We lost 8 in a row. Our space program is dead in the water. Meanwhile, the Soviets have 2 space shuttles up there cruising around Salyut 7, and they have Mir. They have been working on a space plane, the ability to actually service their satellites. Meanwhile, we're totally undefended. We have 60% of the American people today believe we're defended against Soviet missiles. No way. For $120 billion, we can put up a non-nuclear device, a non-nuclear system that will attack weapons, not lives, be used only in the event we're attacked, and actually phase deployed at a cost of 5% of our military budget. We've got the technology now. It exists.
All that's lacking is political will. And men like this, who prate and prattle the Soviet party line, he says the the Soviet Union does not have an SDI program. He says that's U.S. disinformation. Recently, Gorbachev admitted in Washington, D.C., that they're doing the same kinds of things we're doing at the SDI.
Only they've been doing it longer.
They've been doing it longer for 10 years. They spend 10 times as much as we've spent, too. That's the other. So the Soviets repeated those lies to each other for so long, you've forgotten their lies. You actually believe this. Gorbachev has said this. He said that you have a program that's technically unfeasible, SDI, unworkable, destabilizing. That's what he calls it.
If it's no good, how come they don't want us to build it?
Why don't they sit back and watch us pour billions of dollars down a rat hole of a system that won't work? They know it'll work.
Why not, Lieutenant Colonel?
It will work, but not as a defense, as an offensive weapon. It's the only way it can work.
That is BS. That is a big piece of BS. That's the military. That is BS. That is BS.
What I'm hearing from you, Edison, please. What I'm hearing from you is that you don't want SDI, a defense system designed to protect us from the Russians.
I wouldn't want it for free. Right.
You wouldn't.
And I don't want the Russians to have
You do
it.
want a joint mission to Mars someday.
I've never said that.
Said is the word, not saved.
Yeah, right.
Are you sure you're a lieutenant colonel in the American military?
Yeah.
You are, huh?
Are you sure you're not in the Soviet payroll? Oh, come
on. Next we'll meet a former astronaut who wants to go to Mars with a Russian cosmonaut. Stand by. We'll see. Let me introduce a former astronaut.
Let me make one remark.
Go ahead.
One historic dissertation. We witnessed Soviet-American space cooperation in 1975. It was detente #1, right? Let me give you two figures to show what is the result of that nice cooperation. Today, the United States has its armed forces, plus all the reserves, is less than 5 million. Now the Soviet Empire has how much? 62 million against 5 million. What happened? Detente means relaxation of tensions. So the relaxed Nixon abolished draft. As a result, we have 62 million in the Soviet Empire and 5 million potential fighters in the United States.
Lev, are you saying Glasnost is Glasgow? Glasnost is really Glasgow?
Yeah, no, Glasnost is a super detente. That's what it is. It's detente #1 ushered by Ronald Reagan. And what it is going to be, it's the end is what is called Soviet peaceful colonization of the West, without any war, but penetration everywhere, cooperation everywhere, business, finances, trade, education.
To come into this or just this fear peddling?
You got any facts?
Well, sure.
What facts do you
outnumbers
have?
the Soviet bloc with 2.4 million to 2.3 million troops today. We outnumber them in troops. We outnumber them in all kinds of weapons. It's 62 million.
We don't.
What are you counting them? Boy Scouts?
We do not.
Look, you learned professor of cabbage soup. Just a second.
I wonder how...
No, let me finish. Let me finish. According... Two figures. According to my statistics, which is the best in the West, and according to the Pentagon statistics, which coincides with my statistics, the Soviets have armed forces plus reserve 62 million people. Have you read
They're all reserve.
Soviet military power by the Pentagon?
Oh, yes.
Books? You read it there. It's 62 million if a person.
Bowman, Lev, stop a minute. Let me introduce Mr. O'Leary, former astronaut, all right, the author of this book, Mars 1999. Brian is a former astronaut. Are the failings of the U.S. space program indicative of a technological incompetence or simply a run of bad luck?
Well, I think it's some of both, and I think it's time to revive the space program. And as a matter of fact, I think we should go to Mars, and I'm going to show you a few pictures. I think there might be life there.
All right, roll out a monitor for me so our audience...
This shows dried-up riverbeds,
huh?
and it's on the monitor, so that's good.
That's Mars?
That's Mars. Viking photographs of dried-up riverbeds. And here's an interesting picture. This shows mesas that resemble a human face in pyramids.
Looks a lot like my warts.
Who knows what it is, though? We don't know, and we won't know until we go
Looks
back.
like it's probably the picture. Looks like it's probably the picture of Gorbachev's ass.
I'll tell you in a minute. This is an artist's concept of a base on Phobos, the moon of Mars, which may be chock full of water, which will save billions of dollars. Now, here's a picture of Phobos itself, which is a very interesting moon that we might be able to mine for water, for refueling spacecraft, and so forth. Now, let me give you my point of view.
Let me ask you something, Brian, before you even give your point of view. All the years we've been involved in the space program, all right, and I happen to be a great lover of the space program, what has it benefited the American people? I mean, we've spent billions. What does it benefit? I mean, so far, all I know we got is a microwave oven and Tang.
Well, there have been a number of studies done that show that there's actual economic benefits, spin-offs from that. There's computers, a whole bunch of high technology things that have been very, very beneficial. And now, of course, Japan is beginning to take the leadership in these areas. And part of it is because the U.S. has abrogated its leadership in space exploration. So the way I look at it is, and this is in my book, is that the U.S. and Soviets can go to Mars together, but not necessarily in the same spacecraft. Separate spacecraft that could be docked, and each one would be emergency backup for the other. Crews could exchange like Apollo-Soyuz. You don't have to transfer technology from one program to the other. We can remain independent. If the Soviets back out, we can still go. I think we can do it by the year 1999, in time to celebrate the turning of the millennium. And we might find life there.
Brian, no one denies your expertise when it comes to space. No, go ahead.
Let me speak to this. You know, Lev, listen just a sec. Mr. O'Leary, you know, I appreciate the fact you're a former astronaut and you have this vision of going to Mars with the Soviets, maybe in 2 spaceships, but cooperative. The fact remains, currently, the Soviets have 10,000 first-strike missile warheads to our 1,000 first-strike missile warheads, Minutemen II.
There are so many warheads, there's so much overkill.
Now, wait, don't interrupt me on the overkill. Let me just tell you what the facts are.
It's perilous.
The Soviets have the potential for a first strike. They're about to break out of their anti-ballistic missile defense system, according to Bassel, Chief of Air Force Intelligence. They expect to be breaking out and have a nationwide anti-ballistic missile defense system by the end of 1989. Couple that with a massive first strike arsenal, the only anti-satellite weapon system, the only satellite weapon system, plus a strong civil defense force. Put those 4 factors together.
This is the same guy who on December 6th at Pearl Harbor said,
The point I'm trying to make is this, if I won't get interrupted this time. If I won't get interrupted this time.
I told you, just a second. I told you that the Soviet Empire has 62 million trained people. Now you have the insolence to make a certain gesture of dismissal. How do you mean? Do you question this figure? If you question, I'll tell you you are a liar.
In here. I've got all the figures in here. He is absolutely wrong.
What about the Pentagon publication?
Capability. ICBM. They have 10,000 warheads.
I have told you, Dr. Bowman, that the Pentagon publishes every year the most authoritative book. And I'm quoting that the Soviet Empire has 62 million trained people.
Okay, we're going to...
Now, you are giving us this.
Let me tell you what's very interesting. While we're all saying USA, these two gentlemen are going USA, and Dr. Bowman, the Russian apologist. Let me hear him.
How many of these brave loudmouths have gotten shot at by communists?
Wait a second. Let's hear one of America's great heroes' questions. Give me the question.
How many of these brave loudmouths have gotten shot at by communists?
I talked to the devil 3 times already. I got shot in the head, once in Vietnam, at 107 temperature with malaria. I was with the 173rd Airborne over there in Vietnam. There you go. Just because God was looking out for me, I was recuperating from the malaria on the last mission when I was getting ready to go home. My comrades, my men that I fought with, and guys that died with, hit a 500-pound bomb and got killed. But I was lucky enough, because I was recuperating from America, to be standing right here.
You bet. We're fighting for your right.
Every treaty since Salt One. More. I have a meeting with Bill Boggs on an upcoming show after this show. Would you be at that meeting, please?
You damn right, pal.
Thank you.
We have to assure the security that man, me, and a lot of the rest of us fought for over there. Guys like this with this stupid high frontier Star Wars are trying to sell it down the tubes. They talk about technology transfer. They want to give the technology to the Russians. Let's deal with technology transfer. Let's talk about technology. You're talking technology transfer. Let me deal with technology transfer. We don't have that. Shut him up. Nuclear war. Let me tell you about technology.
Is assured by defense. Security is defense, not Dr. Bowman's high-flown
years out of date. You know, we're talking about technology transfer. Let me give you one example. If this loudmouth will keep shut for 5 minutes. We gave, under a sign-off of Kissinger and Nixon in 1973, the technology of the Soviet Union that allowed them to move their big SS-18 missiles. They have the SS-18. They have 300 of them, 10 warheads each. That's 3,000 warheads. They have a 360 SS-19s. That is 360 of them. That's another approximately 4,000 warheads. Those big babies, an SS-18, one of them is 10 stories high, packs more explosive power than the entire bomb tonnage dropped in World War II by both sides. That's one SS-18 with 10 warheads. Guess who gave them the technology that allowed them to improve the accuracy of those missiles 10 times, a sign-off of Kissinger and Nixon, allowed the Grinding Company for $25 million of blood money to improve the accuracy of those SS-18s with 10 warheads each, aimed at guess where? Now that's technology transfer. That's right here, aimed at us. Star Wars, at him.
Just a second. A 1 minute story. 1 minute story of Dr. Bowman. No, just 1 minute story without any figures. Yes, indirectly. Indirectly. One story of security. Under the INF Treaty, the American side will destroy its real missiles, right? And the Soviet side will destroy its canisters. And this is what William Burns wrote in his memo to Ronald Reagan. But Ronald Reagan paid no attention. This is security. The United States is duped.
Giving the Soviet Star Wars technology would be to sign our death warrant. Most of us in the military are against it. Always have been. The Joint Chiefs of Staff opposed it. No, the military's insulted by you. Oh, come on, they're insulted by you. They've told you. They're insulted by you. They've told you that they're insulted by you. They've told us that. Tell me who. Tell me who in the military told you they were insulted by you. What is that? Let me hear who in the military who means a pot of is involved in stealing his Chiefs of Staff. They told you they wouldn't talk to you. Come on. You've been sitting there very nicely tonight. Say something.
Boy, how do you get a word in edgewise for this crowd today? I usually am pretty outspoken, but this has been an active show, and you have a bad voice. Whoa. One of the things I am very concerned about is whether the United States has the intestinal fortitude anymore to go anywhere. We had an accident and 7 people got killed, and that's sad. But since that time, the United States has become Wimp City. We seem afraid to do anything that is going to risk anybody anywhere. Can you imagine if Charlie Lindbergh was around today saying, oh, I don't want to go into space until I have a safety system that will ensure that I can't get hurt. I mean, men used to fight to see who could be the first one to risk their lives. Now we keep backing up, and I'm afraid we're never going to go anyplace if we don't change the whole...
I agree with that. In 1961... I agree with that. In 1961, President Kennedy set the Apollo lunar landing goal, and it was achieved magnificently within 8 years. We can do the same for Mars. The only way that I disagree with most of you is that I see that you're a bunch of cold warriors, and that you have tremendous fear and anger, and you want to pour...
Hey, you want to tell us what a cold warrior is?
Star Wars, increasing spending on such systems as that's depleting our resources.
Right, instead we'll spend it to go to Mars and look at little guys. $100 billion.
What would be wrong? What would be wrong with developing SDI and getting all the spin-offs from SDI that we can get, and at the same time that we are defending ourselves from being destroyed, we would be preparing for a trip to Mars?
Because SDI doesn't have the kind of technology that will spin off as efficiently as something like Apollo and the mission to Mars.
It's a little less efficient, and it can meanwhile protect us from total destruction. Wouldn't that be a pretty good idea?
It won't protect us from total destruction. It's a leaky umbrella. It's not a very wise system.
As long as we have it, they will never even
billion for phase one, which is more than...
Oh, umbrellas are leaky, sir. A perfect umbrella.
We'll be right back. We'll be right back and talk to the audience.
Downey Jr. show, stay at the Meadowlands Hilton Hotel.
This show has really evolved into more of a, not just should we go to the Mars with the Soviet Union, I mean, how should we go any place with the Soviet Union? Let's talk to this gentleman. We'll start back and forth with the
With all
audience.
due respect to Mr. O'Leary, I don't think it's fair to brand this audience Cold Warriors, more like concerned Americans. We can't be spending money on traveling all over the universe while the Russians are our biggest threat here on Earth. I think we have to take care of our defense first and then space later.
The more people that think like you, the more it will be. And I would like to see a peaceful, cooperative world. I think we can negotiate and verify arms control agreements. I think it's time we turn this around.
What about the
and develop world peace.
American gentleman speaking.
Lev, let the audience talk.
I think we can verify and negotiate these agreements, and I think that we can have the resources that are massively
Just
being
like we
invested
have
in
for the
defense
last 40
and
years.
reallocate
Yeah.
those resources to the trip to Mars, to saving the planet from environmental pollution, developing safe energy sources. We are in trouble on this planet because we've been spending too much money on defense. And now it's time to reallocate those resources.
Amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Amazing, isn't it? Since we began to spend all this money on defense, which these military geniuses oppose, we haven't had a major world war. I wonder why.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be because we spend a lot of
No, but you can't prove it isn't because of that either, can you?
Right, so you can't prove it.
Go ahead. Right on. Go ahead. Hey, go ahead. Step up there.
The way I see it, you know, the money that you're spending to go to Mars, that should be spent on us. You know, because, you know, like, people, women here, their kids are going to be the next generation. They should be able to see their kids later on. And if you want to go to Mars, listen here, Papa Smurf, go by your damn self.
The United States of a manned mission to Mars by the end of the century would be about 0.3% of the federal budget. That is to look for extraterrestrial life, to cooperate internationally.
We haven't found the life that's here yet. Go ahead.
I have a question to the man in the light blue suit. Excuse me, I'm talking.
What? Wait a second. He said there was no intelligent life in this audience. What do we say to scumballs like this?
I had a question to the man that just left. He says that we should go to Russia to space with the Russians. I just want to know whose side he was on when they were pointing missiles at us in Cuba.
My question was for about 28 years ago. Let's get into the new age. Let's transform ourselves.
Damn missiles there.
Yeah, we have missiles too. The whole world does. We're imperiled. It's time to cut down on it.
Lev, let him go. No, Lev.
All right. You know, I think it's very classic, this gentleman here. The reality is the United States is in extreme peril. They are in extreme peril. 10,000
first strike warheads aimed at us against 1,000. Add that.
Come back after these commercials to the rest of the audience. Now, Charlie, you wanted to say something. Let Dr. Wiley say something for a second.
We heard 6, 7 years ago that if the United States were ever to put Pershing missiles and cruise missiles into Europe, people such as those that have been on the show today told us the Soviet Union would never come to any agreements. Oh, this will ensure World War III. They did everything they could to stop us. Ronald Reagan hung tough. They hung tough in Europe. We put in the cruise missiles. We put in the Pershing, and they came crawling to the table and said, let's have some kind of agreement. If that doesn't prove how wrong they are, nothing will ever prove it.
You know, one of the things that has made this country great has been the ability of the American people to build it better and be there first. Well, I'll tell you, gang, we don't need the Ruskies to get to Mars or any other place. And we sure as hell don't want to teach them how to do it. Thank you, guys.